Hello, men. This is your host, Ryan Stephen Green speaking. Here at Moustache Blade, we work hard to bring you content that is both informative and entertaining. And boy, are we thrilled by your patronage. If our humble efforts here are met well by your aural proclivities, we'd like to hear about it. Rate our podcast on iTunes, and for good measure, leave us a review. Let us know you're listening. We thank you. Moustache and Blade!
Welcome to the Moustache and Blade podcast, a show dedicated to all things facial fur and traditional wet shaving in an effort to create global facial awareness. And now, here are your hosts, Douglas Smythe and Ryan Stephen Green.
Hey, this is in fact Douglas Smythe, and with him as always,
Me, Ryan Stephen Green.
And today's show is brought to you by HowToGrowMustacheStore.com, where you can find Synergy Shaving Soap, as well as many other shaving accessories, including my newly released Gondolier Cologne / aftershave, strong enough to be used as a cologne, gentle enough to be used as an aftershave. So check that out. I also released a Cavendish Cologne too / aftershave. And then there's a Cavendish body powder and a styptic pencil. All this and more, folks, can be found at HowToGrowMustacheStore.com. Check us out today. And thank you. Now, what are we looking at today, Ryan?
Well, you guys are in for a real treat this week because we have not just a Mr. Green on the scene, we have a Mr.'s Green, a Monsieur's Green on the scene. That's because today's special guest is none other than my father himself, Dr. Glen Lloyd Green. And you guys are going to learn a lot about me. My dad is a storyteller, and you're going to understand a lot more about your host, Ryan Stephen Green, after you listen to today's episode. I'm really excited to introduce my dad to you. He's a great guy. He is my favorite man in the world. I could say it that way. And I love him to death. And today I take him to go get a straight razor shave with your friend and mine, Craig The Barber.
On with the show. Why, hello, and welcome back to another quick wet shaving tip with your pal, Douglas Smythe. Hello, folks. Today I want to speak about honing. And I'm not talking about honing your straight razor. I'm talking about honing your single edge or double edge blade. Which may sound ludicrous considering the prices of these things nowadays, but some of us are a little more frugal than others. Some of us are a little more experimental and want to see how much mileage we can get out of these things. Some of us only have a sample pack of some single edges that we really enjoy, maybe had trouble finding. We just want to prolong their life. Regardless, we should all get a little experimental now and then. So let's see how long we can make these blades last. So, we will be building our own hone. It'll be a double-sided hone. And what you will need is a painter's stirring stick. This can be found at a hardware store that mixes paint, or just a paint supply store, and they're usually free. Or free with a purchase. But I'm sure you can talk them into giving you one for free. They're cheap. Bring that home. Cut it in half. You want at least 5 or 6 inches to work with here. Gently cut it in half, might I add, too, because the wood is cheap and it may splinter. If it splinters and you want it to look good, just hit it with some sandpaper. Now, you can keep this as a cheap little hone, or you can go the extra mile and stain the handle, maybe add some polyurethane coating to the handle, but you want to keep one side of the wood natural. Don't stain it at all, don't paint it. That's going to be the hone. Now, what you will need next is an adhesive denim patch. You can find these online or at a material or yarn store. If you're out with your wife or girlfriend and she's hitting up one of these stores, find someone who works there and ask where they are right away. Otherwise, you could spend your entire life roaming this store looking for these damn patches. Anyways, find the largest size denim adhesive patches that you can. Next, once you get home, take your painter's stirring stick and outline the shape of the stick. Now cut that out, peel off the backing, and apply it to one side of the stick. This now gives you, now mind you, if you chose to stain and paint this thing or polyurethane it, you're going to have to wait for this to dry. But once that is done, this is when you apply the adhesive denim patch to one side of the stick. Perfect. Now you have 2 surfaces to work with. And again, experiment. You could hone the wooden side first and then move over to the denim, or vice versa. See what gives you the best results. This is also the perfect size for traveling. A lot of these don't have a hole in the handle. I recommend, again, if you want to go the extra mile, drill a hole in there. And now you can hang it on a screw hook in your bathroom or wherever you choose to shave. So, give this a go, see how that works. If you do want one that is particularly good and long-lasting for travel, I recommend picking up a 6-inch stainless steel ruler. These most of the time come with a hole in it, so that's good. You would apply denim to both sides this time because you're not going to use metal as a hone. And when you're doing this, go a little over the outline. You want it to extend past the edges of the steel ruler. Otherwise, you're going to damage your blade. So, there you go. 2 types of hones to build, 2 types of hones that will give your blade a little more mileage. I would love to hear your results. So please leave your comments below, or feel free to email me at douglas@mustacheandblade.com if you have any questions. Thanks for listening to another quick wet shaving tip with Douglas Smythe, and I will talk to you folks next week. And now to you, Ryan.
Men, here at Moustache and Blade, you've heard us talk about the ads, the acquisition disorders. Well, Doug and I have contracted a couple of them we're about to tell you about. I'm going to tell you about CAD, clip acquisition disorder. And when I say clip, what I'm referring to is commercials, film clips, any sort of mass media piece of footage that depicts wet shaving at all. We are going to build the world's largest collection of wet shaving video clips and film clips that anybody's ever seen. Whether it be Three Stooges, Charlie Chaplin, Jack Palance, Charles Bronson, whoever it is, if you know of a YouTube clip that depicts wet shaving from the dawn of cinematic history in the late 20th century till today, send it our way, and we're going to compile these all into our collection of film clips on wet shaving. Doug's going to tell you about our other ad. Doug?
Yes. I just want to add, this goes for commercials, vintage commercials also, even the manufacturing process of razors or blades, anything that is related to wet shaving, video-wise, audio-wise, poster-wise, artwork-wise, we are interested in. So please get those links off to us. Next, however, we are, Ryan and I are both going to be involved in this pop-up art event that's happening in New York, February 22nd. It's a Nomad Barber coming to New York event hosted by Pop-Up Art. And what the artists need there, well, they're doing a lot of interesting things with hair for the most part. Our idea is to incorporate something else, something a little more sinister into the mix as well, and that would be your used blades. That's right, folks. Finally a reason, finally a purpose for
The
your
rustier,
used blades.
the better.
Exactly. We want you to empty your banks for us, so to speak, and send us your used blades. Not necessarily us, but the person running the event, and that would be Juliet Silva Yee. And her address is Pop-Up Art Event, care of Juliet Silva Yee, 333 East 14th Street, number 12M, New York, New York, 10003. The address will also be in our show notes. So please get them off to her today. She'll take as many blades as you can send. I can only imagine what her mailbox is going to look like.
We want her mailbox absolutely swamped with blades.
Yeah.
Hook her up.
Yeah, she has no idea we're sending this to her, by the way. So you're working for us, people. No, she knows what this is for. And yeah, the artists on the scene will be creating these wonderful, strange, artistic things that artists do with the blades, with your blades, people. So you're going to be contributing and becoming part of this whole event that is going to be awesome and happening February 22nd. Still to be announced where, such is the nature of pop-up events. But yeah, so please send off your blades today, and thank you.
All right, guys, you ready for today's acronyms?
Yes!
First up, we have +1, parentheses, 2, 3, etc. I'm repeating what they said. I agree with what they said. That's a +1, +2, or +3. They're upping. It's kind of like a Reddit thing. I don't really participate in Reddit, but I think you like +1 things, and it keeps on moving it up the chain of command or whatnot. +1. I'm repeating what they said. I agree with what they said. In medical circles, you would say, I concur. But in the wet shaving forums, you say +1. Next, 3017ers. Wet shavers with large stockpiles of soap who are, parentheses, aggressively using it up one puck, tub, stick, tube at a time. Some of them estimate they will run out in about 3017. Thus we have the 3017ers. You know, this strikes me as true because I got tagged in a post on the Wet Shavers Review. Is that what it's called, Doug? Wet Shaver Review. So I actually agree with this 3017ers to an extent because I happened to be tagged in a post on the Wet Shaver Review open group on Facebook the other day, and I did some math based on what I read there, and I figured out that the party in question would have to shave for the next 304 years. 304 years. Oh, okay, 3017 though. That's like 1,000 years. He's gonna shave for 1,000 years.
He's not gonna live that long.
Oh, that's hilarious! I didn't know this was a thing. I've just totally ruined this acronym. I guess.
No, it's cool, man.
Okay, we'll keep going. Next up, 3 T's: Trumper, Taylor, and Truefit and Hill. I don't know what that means, but now you know what the acronym stands for.
It's soap.
3B. This is not the apartment number of your best gal. This means best badger brush, usually referencing the C&E brush. Again, I don't know what C&E. Maybe we'll look that one up next. Let's see what C&E means, shall we? C&E, Crabtree and Evelyn. There we go. Now we know what C&E means. See, some of these, when you look up these abbreviations, they're like annotated. You can't just look up a self-contained definition. You got to cross-reference with other acronym definitions because they all are kind of intertwined, you know?
Sub-acronyms.
Sub-acronyms, as Doug calls them. Next up, AD. Oh man, we talk about this one a lot. Acquisition disorder. And you can insert whatever letter you want before the AD. So you have like RAD, razor acquisition disorder. You have like SAD, soap acquisition disorder. It just sounds bad. Oh, that must be Blade acquisition disorder.
Acquisition disorder.
Moving on. Oh my gosh, we have a doozy here. This if the last one was haiku length, this one's like essay length. AFAIAC. Once again, that was AFAIAC. As far as I'm concerned. I'll let that one pass.
That's just as long as saying it, actually.
I know. It's like, what's the use of an acronym when it's that long?
Yeah.
Anyway, here's the next one. AFAIK. Related to the last one, but this one stands for as far as I know. You all are some lazy typers out there. I'll tell you what. I mean, it's almost as many letters as typing out the whole thing. AOS. Art of Shaving. You know it. I know it. I've been down to the Americana in Glendale. You've been to your local megalopolis outdoor shopping mall and seen the Art of Shaving. Probably haven't gotten a shave there, but we all know it exists.
Maybe we should serve coffee also. Free coffee. It'll pull the people in.
Maybe we need like a merger between like Starbucks and AOS.
The Art of Coffee.
So there you have it. Acronyms for the noob and the experienced hand alike. On with the show.
Hey folks, Douglas Smythe here again, and I just want to share some thoughts with you for a second before we hop into today's episode. Full-on episode. I've been noticing a lot online for the last few months, Procter & Gamble, or a few articles on Procter & Gamble's earnings reports, and how they have been blaming Movember for cutting into their dividends, so to speak. And I found this really interesting at first, because they're blaming, Movember for people growing their beards out and mustaches. First of all, let's get this clear. That's not Movember. Movember is about growing a mustache. If you are participating in Movember, you are just growing a mustache. In that case, you will still need to be shaving. So we can toss the Movember issue out the door. What they are doing is lumping Movember and No Shave November together because they are completely out of touch with what's going on in the consumer world. At first, that's how I dismissed this anyways, that, they are really out of touch with their consumer base because there's a whole wet shaving revival happening around them that they're not even mentioning. Clearly, they're out of touch if they're blaming this on hipsters and 5-day stubble and all that jazz. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized that this is it's a brilliant marketing scheme on their part. By blaming their earning loss on hipsters and Movember and No Shave November, it's kind of a sleight of hand thing they're doing. Blaming it on a novelty or a trend that will probably disappear. They need not bring attention to the wet shaving world. By not mentioning wet shaving cutting into their earnings, they are bringing no attention to that. So it was a clever move on their part, and I'm pretty sure that's what they're doing there. So Procter & Gamble, I just want to say, we're on to you. And the devil is in the details. And now on with our show. And now it's time for yet another answer from our razor doctor, Matt Pisarcik of RazorEmporium.com.
Hey, Matt, I have a quick question for you in regards to my vintage Gillette red tip and blue tip razors. Both of them are in fine working order, except for the painted tips. How would I go about repainting them? First, what are the names of the colors used? And second, should I use a brush to paint them or spray them? If spraying them is the way to go, what is the best way to do this? Thanks, Razor Doctor, and thank you, Ryan and Doug, for doing a great job. Bye.
Hey there, Matt. Thanks for the question about the vintage Gillette Super Speed red tip and blue tip repainting. That's kind of a multi-step process. We definitely get asked that all the time as how to go about doing that effectively. The first thing you'll want to do is to strip off all the original paint with either paint thinner or a brass brush, something that'll get all that off. You'll want to clean up the surface and make sure it's nice and dry. Then you'll want to mask it off with some kind of masking tape or some kind of painter's tape to cover up the handle and the rest of the razor. And so just the tip is exposed. And I like to use a spray paint. The color that I like and I've found is the closest to the red tip is called Satin Claret Wine. And it's a product made by Rust-Oleum. And for the blue, the Rust-Oleum brand Royal Blue, the color is really close as well to the original blue tip. And I've experimented for years and got these colors, and they're pretty damn close to me in both the color and the finish, the matte kind of satin finish and not a glossy finish. So after you've masked it off and you're ready to spray, just make sure you follow any kind of precautions with spraying spray paint. Make sure you do it outside in a well-ventilated area. But you'll want to go ahead and just kind of work the surface and just kind of spray in little spurts and move the handle around and cover it nice and evenly and very lightly at a time, and not gloop it on and get all, big spots and, big areas where it's starting to drip or anything. And then want to hang it up and let it dry for at least, 10 or 12 hours to make sure it's really nice and dry. And then when you remove the masking tape, you should see a pretty nicely painted surface there. And it should be pretty close to the original 1950s Gillette Super Speed finish. I've tried using a brush and stuff in the past, and that's just really cumbersome. But I really can say with confidence that spraying it with the right kind of spray paint and the right kind of surface preparation will make it look really, really close to the original. When you're all done, enjoy your razor, and it won't be as durable as the original powder-coated finish, but it definitely is going to, look really, really sharp and should last for quite a while. And if you ever need to touch it up, then you can always touch it up again. I really hope that helps. And thanks for the question, and enjoy shaving with the vintage razors. Thanks so much.
If you also have a question for Matt in anything in regards to razor restoration, cleaning, fixing up that vintage razor that you would love so dear and would love to see live a life anew, but want to do this on your own, maybe with a little help, please call Matt at 347-333-1511 and leave your question there, and we'll be sure to have him answered on our next show.
Well, today we have a very special show. It's the second ever Mr. Green on the scene. Except today is even more special because it's a Mr.'s or Monsieur's Green on the scene. That's because today our special guest is my father himself. We're actually going to be going down to Beverly Hills to get a straight razor shave from your friend and mine, our guest on the first ever Mr. Green on the scene, so-called Craig the Barber. So we're going to see Craig the Barber to get some straight razor shaves. Very excited about this for a couple reasons. One is just to have an experience with my dad and to get you to meet him, but the other is that he's never had a straight razor shave. So, we're going to do that. Hello?
Hi,
You ready?
I am.
Are you excited?
Very.
Good.
A little fearful, too.
We'll talk more about that. Let me grab my stuff.
All right.
So, we're in the car now. We're on the way to see Craig the Barber at the Montage Hotel.
Woohoo!
I'm with my dad. I've actually, in I guess, celebration of today's events, I'm wearing my dad's Eagle Scout uniform. So I don't want any emails from listeners who are Eagle Scouts. I myself am not one, and I have received plenty of lectures already on the fact that I'm not supposed to wear an Eagle Scout badge, but I do it in honor of my father, who's with us today. Say hi, Dad.
Hello, it's good to be with you.
Do you know the name of my podcast?
Son, I'm sorry, I don't even know what a podcast is.
Why don't you introduce yourself? Give us a little mini biography for our listeners, most of whom are, well, I don't know what our demographic is actually. I'd imagine most of them are pretty young, 20s, 20-something, my age,
Wow.
30.
Wow. Well, how much time do you want on this this introduction?
The nutshell version.
Alrighty. Well, first of all, let me just say how much I love my son Ryan and how proud I am of him, and he means the world to me. And it's very rare when you have a 60-something-year-old dad and a 30-something-year-old son who are good friends and just enjoy being together and doing things together. And so I couldn't be happier with that, with Ryan. Just a nutshell, grew up in Los Angeles, proud product of the LA Unified School District. Myself grew up without a father, and only recently have been kind of wrestling through the implications of that. Probably the most significant thing in my life in my youth was sports. I played football and baseball, and I graduated from college. I married the girl of my dreams. I got a job in education as a middle school teacher, mostly working with special needs students, and I worked that job for 35 years. Did a lot of things to try to make ends meet. Teacher's life is not the most lucrative, and so I worked second and third jobs to put the kids through college. We have 3 children, and my wife and I have now made it 35 years as man and wife, and I think the only other maybe significant hallmark was when I was 45, got a bug to go back and finish my doctorate, and so I did that at Azusa Pacific University. That doctorate has opened up more doors of opportunity for me than anything I've done in my life, and today I am the coordinator of the Master of Arts in Special Education at Azusa Pacific University. So that job fits me like a glove. Very happy. And now I'm going to bring it totally up to date by saying, opened my Christmas present from my son Ryan this Christmas to find a card that said, Dad, this card entitles you to a straight edge razor shave down in Beverly Hills. Where are we going, son?
We're going to the Montage Hotel to visit Craig the Barber.
We're going to see Craig, and I'll go ahead and answer questions, but I just want everybody to know I am scared to death. That's the first thing I want you to know is I am scared to death, and I'm going to reveal a personal phobia to the group here. In my growing up life, everybody carried a stiletto or a straight edge razor, and my biggest fear in life was getting stabbed or cut. And all my life I said I would rather get shot than get stabbed or cut. And so to go in and put my throat in the hands of somebody with a straight edge razor, I just want everyone to know I'm only doing this out of love for my son, because I would never choose to do this on my own.
We're conquering fears here at the beginning of 2014, apparently.
We are conquering one of my greatest fears today. So can't think of someone I'd rather do it with than my son Ryan.
Well, Thank you for that introduction to yourself, Dad. And for you guys listening, you hear my voice every week if you tune into the podcast. You just were exposed to a huge part of who I am because I completely idolize my dad and can easily say that of the men in my life, he's far and away the most important. I love my dad dearly, and I'm glad that you got to hear a little bit about him. Now you know a whole lot more about me. So, back to the straight razor shaving. Easy question. Have you ever had a straight razor shave before?
This is a first in my life. Never. Never would have thunk it. I never would have considered it in my life had it not been for my Christmas present.
What about how did you learn to shave, or do you remember the very, very first shave you ever had?
I absolutely do. I was, again, I did not have a dad, and I remember as a kid pretending to shave, taking soap suds and putting it on my chin, practicing, learning how to shave, teaching myself to shave with soap from the bath, and then it had to have been just a butter knife or a plasticware, just practicing shaving those soap suds off. But as a teenager, when I actually finally started getting real man's whiskers and needed to shave, I remember exactly how I learned to shave. There was a middle linebacker on the football team, and he was a senior and I was a freshman in high school, and had the dumb idea, I don't know why, my brother and I, after school one day, he was out shooting some buckets, and I had the bright idea. He was a senior, great athlete. In fact, he went on and played middle linebacker at USC. His name was Dale Logie.
Dale Logie, if you hear this podcast for whatever reason, shoot me an email at ryan@mustacheandblade.com. I'll pass it on to my dad.
Yeah, and Dale, I know this sounds strange, but you don't know this, but you were a father figure in my life, and so this was very meaningful and important to me. So I had the idea, if my brother and I challenged you to shoot hoops, we could somehow defeat you. And so I think we had a bet of 50 cents or something, and we played a pickup game of basketball. Well, you trashed us. You beat both my brother and I, and we lost, and then I did some sad story about how I didn't have 50 cents, and you should never bet a middle linebacker that you're going to you're going to have a bet if you're not carrying the money in your pocket to pay off. So anyway, I thought for sure you were going to beat me up or somehow, take out the 50 cents some way on me. But you were very kind. You forgave the debt. But then you did something else that was really weird. I was getting whiskers, and you mentioned that. Oh, you getting your whiskers, huh? And I said, yeah. And then I remember very specifically I said to you, but I don't know how to shave. And you took the next 10 minutes just explaining how you shaved to me. And that was my role model. Next thing I knew, I had a can of Barbasol and a double-edged razor, and off I went. And Ryan, that's how I've shaved the rest of my life, the way that Dale taught me to shave that day on the basketball court. And so never deviated from it ever.
Minus one small fact, because double edge has a very specific meaning to the guys who will be listening to this.
Oh, okay.
There was a change at some point in that respect. Is that right?
I guess early on, now you'll have to help me, but, early on, at some point I started buying the cartridge razors that, in fact, if you were to come over to my house and look at the razor handle that I have, that thing's gotta be, my entire married life, I don't think I've ever had a different one. So 35 years of married life, and then, I got married when I was 23, so certainly all through college, I used something of that kind of cartridge type system. Now, if that were true in high school or not, I have no memory of it. There was nothing significant in terms of the fact where one day my mother said to me, this was your father's razor or something like that. Never was passed down to me. Lost my daddy when I was very young, 3 years old, and so did not really have many artifacts of my dad to utilize in the upbringing of a young man like that. Like I say, everything I knew about shaving came from Dale Logie on that basketball court that day, and I've practiced it ever since until today as we drive up Robertson in Beverly Hills on our way to this shop. This will be a first for me.
So to just clarify on the cartridges, you've used the twin razor this whole time.
Twin and double edge aren't the same thing?
No, they're not the same thing.
Okay. Well, this is an education for me.
There we go. I guess that the only real difference is that the twin just took both of those edges and put them on one side of the razor instead of having them on opposite sides. So let's see. What did you teach me about shaving?
Oh man, that's a good question, and you probably would have that more in your memory banks than I would. I'm going to try to think back. Let me tell a story about your podcast host here that'll help you to understand a couple things. Because I didn't know how to be a dad, I don't think I was the best dad.
He's lying.
He was a
great dad. He is a great dad.
It was a learning experience for me, and I never quite knew what I was doing. I didn't know what to offer other than I really wanted to provide, and I was quite a workaholic in trying to provide for my wife and my children. That was very important to me. As far as teaching Ryan to shave, I'm just going to go back and tell a story here. You know, when little kids are babies, there's not a whole lot to do. My wife Lynn was wonderful. She changed diapers, and basically we kind of had a very old school relationship. She had the hardest job on earth. She was a stay-at-home mom and a wife, and man, she was the best one on earth. And however good the kids turned out, it was mostly because of Lynn and that early training that she did with the kids. I loved little Ryan. Boy, I loved his when he toddled, and I just remember him, we called him Rhino Stevie was the nickname we gave him because he was so rough and tumble. And so, of course, I knew sports. I mentioned that. I knew sports, and so that was all I had to pass on to my son. And when he was 8 years old, I was working, and he started t-ball. After work, I would go to watch him play, and he was horrible. He would build little sand castles rather than look for the ball. Kids would be running all around him to go catch the ball while he built sand castles in the infield and that kind of thing. Finally, one day, a coach kind of went off on him, and I had to go confront that coach in not so polite terms that you're not going to ever talk to my son that way again. And I made the decision at that point, if anybody was going to coach my son, it was going to be me. And that began a relationship with Ryan that we carry with us to this day. We both just love baseball, and we both still go to USC baseball together, to Dodger games together. We'll even stop and watch a Little League T-ball game because baseball is a big part of our lives. So at that young age, I began coaching Ryan in baseball, and the only answer to this question I can say is that it had to be part of that training. When he got old enough where he needed to shave, it must have been the same way that I learned it, in light of you're an athlete, you got to look sharp, and to look sharp, you got to be shaved. And here, I'll just brag on Ryan a little bit. He went from building sandcastles in the infield to being a 20-game varsity winner at Arcadia High School. And he was the freshman player of the year. And we had a plan and that I worked with. He was going to be the freshman player of the year, then he was going to be the junior varsity player of the year, then he was going to be the varsity player of the year. Our plan never worked out because he was taken right from freshman player of the year on to the varsity. I guess I'm going to just tell another story. I don't know where shaving plays a part in this, but it's a story about how proud I was of Ryan. His first year on the varsity, all the kids were going to the prom. And a senior invited Ryan to be the date of a senior girl to the prom. And here he was, this little skinny sophomore. And getting him ready for that prom for me was that was probably number 2 on the scary list of like, how do I get my son ready to go hang with these guys that know everything? He was going to go in a limo. I had never even ridden in a limousine in my life. Scared the bejeebers out of me, I'm telling you. So how do I get him ready to do a tux and to ride in that limo and to be the date of a senior girl? You know, how do I get him ready for all that stuff? I imagine it had something to do with shaving. I don't know if he's told this story on the podcast before, but I'll just inject it here. Thank God for a guy named Jack Palance, who did a commercial for Menon Aftershave. And in that commercial, he was kind of a rough old guy, but he'd put a little Menon on his cheeks, and this was the statement: "Confidence is very sexy, don't you think?" And so that became kind of a mantra that I would give to Ryan with regard to his appearance, which was wrapped up in being confident. Boy, and that little guy, I'm telling you, he became the most confident young man, way surpassed his daddy, that's for sure. I don't know if it was due to the Menon or due to my coaching him or due to other people in his life, like maybe the Dale Logies in his life, I don't know. But I do know that that kid became really confident, became a 20-game varsity winner, had the confidence when he was getting all these scholarships to play Division II and NAIA baseball. He had the confidence to go down and walk on at USC as a player and made the team as a pitcher and really had achieved all he ever wanted to in the field of baseball. And now I'm not surprised at all that he's achieving the same kind of notoriety and glory through doing these podcasts because... what's that? Oh, pedestrian. Yeah, I won't hit her, I promise. Because somewhere along the line through shaving, Ryan became very confident, don't you think?
So now you know where I know about that Jack Palance commercial. I've mentioned it on another podcast, but yeah, it was absolutely formative, and my dad is right here. I did not put him up to talking about Jack Palance or that commercial, but...
I will verify this is an unrehearsed interview.
You know I come by it honestly. I would just say, yeah, the earliest... I do remember about my earliest shaves that it was in 7th grade, my first shave. I remember I was getting the peach fuzz on the upper lip, and the only other... I don't remember you specifically teaching me to shave, but I do remember watching you shave when I was very young, calling your stubble ants. Ants on your face. And I also remember actually using... I guess the razor that you're still using today.
Oh boy.
Well, I remember you kind of handing me the whole setup. It was the cartridges all in a row, the twin cartridges, and it was the handle, the stick as you called it. And I just remember you saying, you can use this, but just take out another actual blade, to put on, and then put mine back on when you're done, kind of thing. So we were actually sharing a razor for some time. I don't know if you remember that.
I don't. What brought back another memory, and you'll have to forgive me because certainly my lack of memories on shaving are no reflection on the fact that I have so many memories of Ryan and our time together. It's just I never tied them to shaving in particular. Perhaps that's the glory of today, is we're going to go create a memory that's all around shaving. But I just wanted to comment on the fact that I was a career teacher and coach at a middle school in Arcadia. Shout out to Dana Middle School. And one of the goals of my life was to have my children attend the middle school where their daddy was the teacher, because I wanted them to see what I did for a living, and I wanted them to be in my class. I don't know how many times I've said to students, how would you like to have your dad be your history teacher, your dad be your coach, And it wasn't a real popular statement. Not many seemed to appreciate it all that much. But Ryan was in my class and came and saw what his dad did in middle school.
Firsthand.
And a big part of that was associated with sports, because when he was there, I was the football coach at this middle school. And in fact, when he was a little boy, I don't know if he remembers this or not, but he would come to the games, and his dad was a big rah-rah guy, gave the speech to get excited for the game. And Ryan would always come in the locker room when he was just a toddler, and I would lift him up and set him on the top of the lockers to listen to his dad rant and rave about how important the game was and how we were going to demolish them, and on it went with that kind of hype. But he always was associated with that. But then when he says he shaved in 7th grade, I'm thinking of that little 7th grade boy. And I'm also thinking about, as a dad, about that time when kids were starting to have, boyfriend-girlfriend relationships and that kind of thing, how desperately I wanted that for him. And so I'm not surprised, because it was about that time I would literally see Ryan walking down the hallways of the school with the best-looking girls in the school, and thinking to myself, that kid, he's got it. He's gonna be okay. I guess confidence really is very sexy.
Not true. None of it.
This way, Ryan?
Yeah, so we're parking at the Montage Hotel right now, so I'm going to cut out on the recording, and we'll resume this when we meet Craig. So you've said already that you're nervous, terrified even, about this straight razor shave, but what are you actually expecting? What do you think it's going to be like?
Well, I don't know. I haven't thought that far ahead. I think the first thing for me was just kind of getting over the hump of doing it. So I'm here. I have parked. I'm about to get into the elevator. I'm totally, I guess here's the point. Kind of funny, maybe we've come full circle, is when you were growing up, I expected you to trust me. And now here I am completely trusting you on this. So I have no other expectation other than I think the world of you, and I trust you completely, even with a razor to my throat.
How you doing?
Hello.
Craig.
Hi, Craig. Nice to meet you.
Good to meet
Pleasure.
you. Awesome. Hey, you look a lot alike.
So there we go. Craig's statement, we look a lot alike. My dad just met Craig the Barber. And
Have a seat. And we'll be right with you in a moment.
All right.
Cool. You guys want anything to drink or anything?
Yeah, I need coffee, water, scotch.
Yeah, double scotch. No, I'm just kidding.
Oh, okay.
I was just kidding.
We'll get it for you.
Yeah, I already told Ryan I'm a little nervous. So
Yeah, that's what he told me.
it's my first time.
so let's have that double scotch, actually.
Yeah, Jack can calm me nervous a little bit. Don't worry,
No,
you'll be in good hands.
I'm just kidding.
That's awesome.
Absolutely.
That's cool. I like your goatee. You take care of that pretty well.
You're very kind. I feel like I make a mess of it personally, but somehow I ended up a college professor, and so I'm shooting for that college professor look.
Well,
Yeah.
that's working.
Yeah,
It's
thanks.
working. You look very studious.
Well,
I believe
you,
whatever you're teaching.
Craig, I like yours because you ended up with those amazing, handsome, good looks. You could like when you're not barbering, you could be like a movie star.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
Thanks. I don't know if I can pull a movie star off, but I definitely can.
I think
I
you can.
appreciate the compliment.
Do you take care of your goatee and mustache yourself?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I use a straight razor.
Yeah.
That's the only way you can really get the lines the way you want.
Yeah. Do you, on your podcast ride, do you get to show pictures? It's just all auditory, right?
We have show notes where we show pictures. My dad learned the term podcast for the first time today.
I'm going to be on, Craig, I'm going to be on a podcast.
Yeah, I'm going to listen to it too.
I'm pretty excited. But I don't know how you do it. Like, my mustache hairs always get caught with my nose hairs now. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
But
it starts growing all up.
just so everybody knows, Craig, he's got this amazing pencil kind of mustache thing that he is so well groomed, it's like striking.
Thanks.
Yeah.
I'll take that. I'll take it. Appreciate it. Appreciate it.
Yeah,
That's
and forgive me, so much of this is detracting because honest to goodness, I am scared to death to do this.
Are you?
Absolutely.
Scared to death, huh?
Yeah. Wow. Yeah.
Well, what exactly is scaring you?
Well, I shared with the listeners to this point on the way down that where I grew up and where I came from, anybody with a straight edge razor or a stiletto or a switchblade, they were out to hurt you bad.
Yeah. That's true. That's true. But I don't think you have any enemies. And I'm a nice guy.
Absolutely.
I'm a nice guy. So I think you'll be all right.
Yeah. Well, anybody that offers me a double scotch at 11 in the morning,
Exactly.
my goodness.
I gotta be a friend. That's a friend.
No wonder this place is so crowded.
Come on over.
Here we go. Time for a straight razor shave. So we just walked out of Gornick and Drucker here at the Montage Hotel. My dad survived his first straight razor shave with Craig the Barber. Dad, what are you feeling right now?
Well, I am the most relaxed that I have probably been in, well, I'm going to be 60 this year, so 59 years. And I can honestly say that truly was one of the greatest experiences of my life. And not just because of the shave, but Ryan, it was more just making the memory of doing that with you and being with you and just kind of the full circle that life tends to have so often, where I raised you to trust me, and you did, and today I put my trust in you, and you led me to Craig the Barber down here, who, by the way, to all of your listeners, wherever they are, I just want to say, if you ever get the chance, you make sure you come to the Montage in Beverly Hills to, what's the name of the shop, Ryan?
Gornick and Drucker.
And you go see Craig the Barber. That guy was one of the most exceptional human beings I've ever encountered. And so put your trust in him, and he will make you feel like a new man. He took the towel off and said, "How do you feel?" And all I could say is, I feel 10 years younger. I'm going to be 60, and I feel 50. And it's amazing that you could put a warm towel on somebody's face and work on them, and 45 minutes to an hour later, you could take 10 years off that person's life. But that's exactly what my experience was today.
Here, let's just stand here for a second. So, did it, all your fears, you were nervous because you thought, oh, what if I get cut, or what if it hurts, or whatever like that. How did it actually feel to get a straight razor shave?
Well, first, just as far as the feeling itself, not only was the shave worthwhile, not only does my face feel really good, I must look really good. Do I look okay, son?
You look pretty dang good. For one, you're beaming. Like, my dad can't stop grinning right now, which was not the case walking into the store.
It's true. For one, I feel really good. But for number two, life really is meant to be experienced, isn't it? And I had some experiences today that were new to me. And I guess my tendency has always been to fear new experiences, to fear change, to fear something different.
It's natural.
And this really taught me today, embrace new experiences, embrace change, give them a try. And so, Ryan, I appreciate that about you, is I basically, as your dad, I kind of gave you what I know, but as my son, you are giving me things that I don't know. And it's just broadening my life experience, and that was really fun.
And now we get to go to Musso and Frank, another new experience.
Let's go do it.
So there you go. Moustache and Blade, Messrs. Green on the scene once again at the Montage in Beverly Hills, seeing Craig the Barber, another satisfied customer. And like my dad says, get down here and meet this man. He's a great guy to be around. It's fun to be in the shop, and anyhow, I'm glad that you men will have all now gotten to meet my dad. So, we're here at Musso and Frank Grill in Hollywood, the famed, frequented restaurant of no less than Charlie Chaplin. It's been open since 1919. It's one of my favorite places in LA. It's just that it's quite pricey, and so you have to kind of be judicious as to when you come to Musso and Frank. But today is a special day. We're making good on the Christmas present to my dad, and so I was just asking my dad about what the actual experience of the straight razor shave was like, what the processes were, and what kind of things were done on his face. So he'll take it from here.
Well, first of all, this has been a day that I'll remember the rest of my life. And Ryan asked me if I would just cover, so what was it like there at the barber shop itself? My barber was a young man named Craig, and asked him, what should I call you? And when I talk about you, he said, call me Craig the Barber. So that's who I'm going to recommend to all of you. The experience itself was unlike any other that I've ever had. It was a completely new experience in my life. I would say an experience of taking care of myself. I would put it under that category. I would put the experience under the category of, although I don't care for the word because I don't think I've ever done this in my life, and that is I felt very pampered. I pampered myself, and it's an experience of entrusting yourself into someone else's hands to make you feel the best about yourself that you can feel. And I found for myself that while the Montage Spa was truly one of the most elegant, Rico Suave facilities I've ever set foot in, it was also true of going down that flight of stairs to get to the barber shop, which was also absolutely impeccable and warm, and I don't know any other term to use, but just rich. It was rich. It was a rich experience. And that began at the door, I think, being greeted by the owner's son, John. John was a stellar young man. I could tell his entire desire was just to make our experience an excellent one. He was clear to point out to us that President Ronald Reagan had come to be shaved there at the barber shop. And there were pictures on the wall of that, including his baseball bat, which, as I mentioned, would have been high interest to myself and my son Ryan. He had a picture of himself with President Reagan where he was in a UCLA fan shirt, which enabled me to ask him about that experience because my brother Scott had gone to UCLA during the Wooden years and was an eyewitness to some of the championships that Johnny Wooden earned there with some of the greatest basketball players to ever play the game. So, of course, that part was absolutely amazing. After meeting Craig, there's something about sitting down in that chair that was the equivalent of getting into a Apollo spacecraft or a Daytona 500 race car. It was something unique and different. There's nothing like the experience of sitting in a barber's chair. I'm trying to think right now as we sit in this historical site, did I have anything in my own history to compare with it? And I know that I think my mom cut my hair when I was young, but I don't remember ever going to a barber. I don't remember the experience of ever going to a barber shop. I do remember my mom singing "Shave and a Haircut 2 bits." I know that. I know this experience cost Ryan a little more than 2 bits.
Glad to pay it. Glad to pay it.
I know that. But the experience of actually stepping up into that barber chair, I think, is unlike any other. And so that was interesting. I just want to talk about kind of the sequence of events which really surprised me. I expected to sit down, have somebody, here's our
drinks.
Our libation for celebration.
Chin chin.
Cheers. I want to talk about that because I guess my expectation was that I would sit down, somebody would take an old brush and stick it in some lather up my chin and start carving away. But no, that was not the experience. The experience seemed to begin with hot towels, and quite honestly, I've never had anybody put a hot towel on my face. I've never had anybody go through the process of making sure that your shirt doesn't get wet, so a dry towel was placed across your chest, and then a hot towel was placed first upon outlining your beard, but then the corners were very professionally and systematically drawn up to cover your eyes and your forehead, and until nothing's exposed but your nose for breathing purposes. At that point, the conversation seems to end with the barber because he makes a point to systematically massage that hot towel into your cheeks and your jawline and your neck. Make sure it's touching all the places that are about to be shaved. It didn't seem to end the conversation with Craig, however, because he continued on the topics that we began with, mostly sports, by the way, which was a delight because I'm a big sports guy. I don't get a lot of chance to talk sports in my given profession. And to have somebody as interested in sports as I am and to be as well connected and versed in sports as I am, and Craig just held up his end of the conversation with no problem whatsoever, as we talked about every topic under sports that I was interested in. In fact, maybe that's really, I'm thinking that Craig was an expert. What he really was an expert at was connecting to what I was interested in. He was a true people person, and he demonstrated that by showing that whatever I wanted to talk about, that's what he wanted to talk about, and I really felt that way. When the hot towels came off, lots of lotions went on, unfamiliar to me, and my son asked me when we were done, how about all those fragrances? I don't think I pay much attention to good fragrances in life. I pay more attention to foul air and bad smells. It was amazing to be in a place where it was all about the good smells. And from what I understand from my own background in education, olfactory experiences, smells, bring forth the deepest memories of life. I didn't have much to connect to there because they were all new smells to me. So, apart from the skin bracer by Menon, which makes you very sexy, I'm sure, these were new smells that I was not accustomed to. However, might I say, delightful, each one and in their own way. I have very sensitive skin, and my barber, Craig, was very conscious and aware that he wanted to make this old Scotch Irishman's skin feel good. And so every thing that he applied, every one of those lotions that he applied to my face just gave me a deeper sense of how good my face felt. When we were done with the experience, just going from beginning to end, Ryan said, "Dad, you're glowing," and I truly was. Not just because I felt good from the inside, but because I really felt good from the outside. I felt that my face looked and felt the best it had in years. And in fact, here's a way of putting it. I think we so often in life tend to settle for pain and suffering, as that's just the way life is. But it's amazing that somebody can take away the pain and suffering, and what you're actually experiencing is not pleasure, but simply the lack of pain and suffering. That's something to behold and to be said for the experience. That being said, I guess by the time 3 or 4 or 5, I lost track at some point. Hot towels were applied to my face, removed, and more lotions were applied. By the time that I got to what I expected, which was that lathering up experience, came, I didn't know that I was being lathered up or if just another lotion were being applied to my face. Oh, and I wanted to say one other thing about the experience of being covered with a hot towel. Talk about shutting the world out. When that hot towel is wrapped around your face, the world is shut out. And when you go into that place, all I can say was, how can I describe it? It was a very happy place.
Sounds like we have a new convert in the making here.
It was a happy place. It was like, wow. How can I say it for your listening audience, Ryan? It was a place I was meant to experience.
That's pretty good.
Yeah. And again, I'm trying to do a stream of consciousness, just saying, here's what I experienced. And I hope I'm doing okay by you, Ryan, your listeners. I'm not used to this. And Ryan's questions today, I already remarked to him that I was caught off guard because they truly are the questions of a documentarian who is just trying to document a phenomena rather than prep somebody and get them ready. I thanked him for not telling me I was going to be a part of his podcast. Otherwise, I would have prepared some answers that I don't know if they would have been of interest to you guys or not. I hope these are of interest to you. All of that to simply say, the thing I feared the most was that straight edge razor. And as I mentioned, and I told Craig the Barber, my only experiences with razors were primarily straight edge, box cutters, stilettos, and switchblades, which were not used to clean the ants off your face, as Ryan reminded me. That was a great memory. But were used to carve somebody's face up. And I remember a close friend in high school whose face was carved up, and he bore the scars of that attack the rest of the time that I knew him. So therein lies my fear of blades.
How did the blade itself compare to what you're used to in the kind of twin cartridges? Did it feel the same? Did it feel different?
After all the other applications that were made in the process of shaving me, the blade ended up being a non-entity. It was as if he never got around to shaving me. It was as if the experience just simply ended so pleasurable that the thing I was afraid of never transpired. It was not part of the experience. And therein, as I've raised my son and as I've been a career educator my whole life, and we touched base on this on the ride over here, therein lies a great difference in life, is that as an educator, I always want to know, what did you learn? That's the important question. What was learned? And I think what was learned there is my fears were unfounded. And what a life lesson, that if you face your fears, if you cross that line to experience something new, you might find the exact same thing, that your fears were totally unfounded. And I can only thank my son for that. My son has surpassed his dad. He's going places that I've never ventured in life, and nothing could make you happier as a dad than that. So I was shaved. I was beaming. I looked in the mirror, and I literally, to myself, looked 10 years younger. And Perhaps it was the good shave. I think more than the good shave, it was the rich experience and the total package. I wanted to add one more thing about the community that this brings. The fact that it brings a sense of community. Certainly the barber shop itself is a community. Certainly the training in what it takes to be the kind of people person to be a barber is part of enhancing community. But certainly going to the barber shop with a loved one, in this case, roles being defined as father and son, and maybe the only thing that could have been better was the father introducing the son to this experience, which did not happen in this case, and in my own personal journey could never have happened for me. And so I can't beat myself up too much because I could not give my son something that I never had. I could only give him what I did have. So in this case, what he did for his dad was he had to introduce the experience to his dad. And so he was giving something to his dad that his dad never had, which is kind of interesting. But whether it's a dad giving an experience to his son or a son giving an experience to his dad, I think by all means, if you try it, take a friend, take a loved one, take somebody who's meaningful to you, that you care about, and then after you go through the experience, by all means, go out and celebrate, go out and toast one another, go out and have a good meal, and because it's an extension of continuing the community. And that being said, I think that kind of wraps the experience, and because I think it's time to eat.
It's time to eat.
You have been listening to the Moustache and Blade podcast. Thanks for listening, and please leave us a review on iTunes. Almost clean shaven, but hardly clean cut. Moustache and Blade.